The MV Barima tragedy has raised serious questions about accountability, transportation safety, and the protection of indigenous communities, with the Amerindian Peoples Association demanding answers from the government. This week on Sources, we speak with APA Regional Representatives Joseph Russell and Roxanne Skeete about the Barima tragedy, the government's commission of inquiry, and the APA's call for greater accountability. We also examine some of the wider issues the APA has been raising, including Indigenous rights. Good evening and welcome to Sources. I'm your host, Svetlana Marshall. This evening, we'll continue the discussion on the MV Barima tragedy. To do so with me, I have in studio two representatives from the Amerindian Peoples Association. I have Joseph Russell, the APA representative for Supanam, and Roxanne Skeete, the Mabaruma regional representative for the APA. Welcome to Sources.
Yeah.
We come at a time when the issue of the MV Barima is still very much alive. Now, the APA has been protesting in front of the office of the president. Before we talk about the reason behind the protests, I want you to take me to Mabaruma, to Region 1, where a lot of the persons who were on board the vessel when it sank on July 18, they were from Region 1, they were heading home, they were heading on vacation. What is the atmosphere like in the region?
Well, the atmosphere in the region, it's very heartbreaking. Grieving, the family are grieving for the loved ones. And the entire country, Guyana, and nationally, we all are grieving with them. We are sorry for the loss because this is a historic tragedy that happens, which is very hurtful. So myself, I am crying also with them. It's really hard because the MV Barima, I travel on that boat on several occasions. It's a very fast moving boat and it's very comfortable when it's not, too much of people and so on. But it's very heartbreaking to know that what had happened on July the 18th.
Were there people on the boat that you personally,
Yes, I knew a lot of persons on the boat from the villages like Whitewater and the riverine area, and also from Kaituma. I know the boat crew because they normally goes on different, like MV Malaysia going to Komaka. They would go on it, so I knew most of them.
And you said the boat was fast moving and,
Yes.
and it was comfortable when it wasn't crowded. Based on the reports you've received from persons who were on the vessel when it sank, was it overcrowded? Was it in the best of position, seaworthiness, with regards to seaworthiness? Do you think that the boat, being 87 years old, should have been still being used?
Well, honestly speaking, I know I'm talking about years ago when I used to travel.
Oh, years ago.
Yeah, right? It used to be comfortable because, you're traveling, you would get, it don't have like the chairs like Malaysia. It does have the long chairs outside and you can sling your hammocks or you put your mattress and you travel there, sleep there. But seeing that it was like the holiday season, the people, children, everybody want to go on vacation. So that is how the boat was crowded, and with cargo also, and passengers. At least this is what coming out from some of the survivors.
Yeah. Now, Mr. Russell, you're from Region 2, and Region 2 is where, in Charity, the government led the search and rescue operation, the Coast Guard. That's where the bodies were taken when they were retrieved. They were taken to Charity, and the identification process took place. Now, that's also where the emergency health response took place. What could you tell us about that response? Were you satisfied as a resident of Region 2 looking on based on what you've seen?
No, I didn't think they had a correct response because, like my son, he works for the health department, and he was on duty that very night, and they were given instructions to go and pick up some a patient at a location. He didn't even probably know it was a tragedy. He was given, because that's a normal thing, they would go and pick up patients at some location. But then when they got there, it was like a vague instruction. They didn't know which street to go, which house to go. So they ended up calling, and they found out that, well, they were in the wrong location. They needed to go to the airstrip, and probably they thought, well, the medical people thought that maybe they would have like helicopters picking up people in the river and taking them to the airstrip. When they got there, they waited, hardly any communication. Then he said they were very hungry because it was late. The gentleman there took them, and they had some coffee and maybe some snacks or something to keep them up, and they were just waiting. And I think that tragedy occurred like about 10 o'clock, thereabout. And I think the survivors, they came in maybe just after daylight, and that's a long time to be in the water, you know. People who were there, they testified to being there 7 hours in the water, you know. So that was a very slow response, and I think you know, that was really heartrending to see these children, especially, you know, in that condition. I thought I saw, and my sister-in-law was there as well. They saw a little girl that was rescued, and she was just walking about bare feet with a big jersey on, nobody, you know, looking at her, you know, giving some comfort and all of that. She lost family members. She was there alone. You know, she needed support. So, you know, these things were really touching, like to look at and to hear of as well. So it's a sad situation still, and it's ongoing because family members are still missing. People are still grieving. If you lost 6, 7 members of your family, live there alone, you know, it's not a nice situation to be in. So, you know, we continue to call on the authorities to do something, as most of the people there were like indigenous people. We thought it's best to, you know, be in solidarity with them, because that's our people, and to be treated like that, you know, we need to let our voices be heard, because we cannot be silent and see our brothers and sisters going down like that and nothing be done. You know, that's really sad. So we thought it best that, well, even I wasn't involved in the protest, but I will be there this evening, hoping to send some message out there as well, so that even though few, and somebody might, you know, want to listen to the message, or, you know, take account of it as well.
Okay.
Because
now, so far, based on the numbers, the official numbers we've received from government, a total of 77 persons were rescued. We were later told that one of the survivors subsequently died, and just over 70 bodies were recovered, with over 30 or just about 30 persons still missing. You said based on what you've seen and what you were told there in Region 2, where the search and rescue operation took place, enough systems were not put in place to properly receive the survivors and to receive the bodies. What were your thoughts about the identification process? Because we were on the ground at one point and we were told that persons, when the bodies arrive at Charity, there's a landing there, then there's a tent set up, and persons, the bodies would be placed on the ground, and persons would go and open the body bags and try to identify their loved ones. What are your thoughts on that, Mr. Russell?
Well, that in itself, it was a slow process as well, and some people needed to be really guided in that process, because I understand there was one situation where someone went and they went through the bodies and they didn't see the person that they were looking for, but then somebody else told them, well, you got to look a little further. And they went and they found the body that they were looking for. So I think, and I don't think that was somebody, well, that was just maybe an ordinary person, not somebody related to health or otherwise.
Now, you referenced to the protest actions by the Amerindian Peoples Association. Now, like I said earlier, the APA has been protesting outside of the office of the president. What is the rationale? What is the reason behind the protests? The government, for its part, has launched a presidential commission of inquiry into the tragedy, and it is said that it will take steps to salvage the vessel. Is that enough? We'll start with you, Ms. Skeete.
Well, the more they don't salvage the boat, the more the family would still keep grieving and crying.
They need closure.
So they need closure. Because as a mother, if you lost any loved one and you don't see them or you don't see part of them, it was very hurtful. It hurts you more when you don't see nothing for them. So I can understand the pain that these parents or wife or whatever going through. It's not easy, because after I heard about this disaster on July the 18th, it affected me, even though I didn't have anyone on that boat. It affected me and I cried, and it affected me about actually a week. So it's not easy, so I can imagine what they are going through. It's hard. So the MV Barima tragedy is not something easy, and this is not something that would happen now and you would forget about it. This is a lifetime historic disaster.
Now, Mr. Russell, the APA has been calling for accountability. Tell me more about that call. Who do you want to be held accountable? Is it the president? Is it the Minister of Public Works, Mr. Juan Enchil? Is it the head of the Transport and Harbor Department or the head of MARAD? Is it the boat captain? And we've seen in the news that he, along with two others, have been remanded to prison and they're facing over 70 counts of murder charges.
When I consider, well, this is my opinion. I may not want to put the president in that position, but still, he is kind of, in a way, responsible, even though he had other responsibilities. But then, if you're put in charge of an office or a ministry, and then you have other people working with you, you need to be held accountable as well. Because I think the whole system is so broken that and people take it for granted. Well, this boat is working now 87 years, and every day, every time, every week, maybe it's going and coming. Well, that's the normal thing. You know, you feel comfortable with that, not knowing that disaster would be waiting. I understand Mr. Edgell. He said, well, the boat has certain load that it would take, right? But when I consider, maybe that was when it was built, you know, just launched. But you can't place the load on a vessel that is 87 years. It's like when I was a young man, I could fetch 100 pounds. But when I reach 87, you can give me that same load? Impossible. So as the boat deteriorates, you can't put that amount of load. And considering the amount of requests and then the amount of contracts that were given out, that was never done on the boat. You know, it's something that, well, I don't know how it occurred, but I think people should have, you know, really stopped going on that boat. But that's the thing. There is no other option. You know, you're living there, Amerindian people especially, and most of who died were indigenous people. They cannot afford an airplane flight there. So, no option. All I have to do is go on that boat, risking my life. So, well, that's how it ended. And concerning the charges, I don't think those guys really deserve that. That's my opinion. If I give you a vehicle to run on the road, and I told you you have to go, that's your work, I employ you, I'm paying you, and you have to go, and you have a bad front tire, and you go on the road and cause an accident, whose fault it is? It's my fault. I'm sending you there. I own that vehicle. You're just a driver.
And it's a state vessel.
Right. So the state is to be blamed. Mr. Chill's supposed to, it boils down to like, well, you're an accomplice. If I give you that job to take that vessel, download, you know it's a risk. It's a safety risk. And then I would charge the captain. That captain, he was thinking about his job. He has a family maybe to maintain. You know, everybody needs money. Even though we have a fast-growing, or the fastest-growing economy, people are suffering still. They need a job. They need money. Prices are going up every day. So I don't expect the captain to say no. Maybe he really needed that money. And, you know, that placed him in a bad position. But I don't see all the fault lying on him. Maybe he had some fault as well, taking that boat out there, but considering his needs and his job, he was paid to do that job.
Ms. Skeete, would you say, in fact, the APA would have called for both Minister Edgell and Minister Indar, who previously served within the Ministry of Public Works, to resign. To date, there has been no resignation and there has been no firing. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, honestly, speaking, well, I don't know much, but I think the system at Transport and Harbour need improvement. They need improvement because if a boat is scheduled to leave at 3 it must leave at 3. Because when you buy a ticket online and you get the transport there, you still have to be in to join another line. So the system is very poor there. And this is not going on for now. This is happening years now, and people keep talking, but like it seems to me that nobody seems to be taking things serious. So even though this tragedy happened the 18th of July, last week the boat scheduled to leave at 3 and they end up leaving sometime 12:50 or what time from Georgetown to Northeast, to Kumaka. So Mr. Edgel and Mr. Indar, I think they need reshuffling or changing or whatever, you know, because if someone is in a position and is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, it's like everything going bad.
Okay. So you're saying it's more than just a maritime accident, that it was preventable, and based on what you said just now, we haven't learned as a people, because some of the issues are still reoccurring. Yes. Tell me more about that.
Yes, because the boat, I think we as indigenous people, and we are traveling on that boat regular. Why we travel on that boat is because the boat fare is cheaper. It's like $2,000, $3,000. And if you have to take a airfare, a plane flight, it's $30,000 to go into Barima.
30 just to go.
Yes.
One way.
How many of our Guyanese indigenous people can afford to pay, especially around this August time is vacation time with our children. If you have like 6, 7 children and you calculate that amount of money, how much of us can pay that? And if you're not in a job, where are you getting that money to pay for aircraft ticket? It's very expensive. And I think that at transport and harbor, systems need to be changed and the system needs to improve.
It needs to be improved.
It needs to improve. If they have to get more staff or whatever, and maintenance, because the other day when the boat was going up, people are still fearful. Because there is no other option. But when they try the aircraft, the plane, the flights are full. So they have to travel on the boat.
So they were very fearful. Now, Mr. Russell, the government for its part would have said, like I said earlier, that this vessel MV Barima was certified as seaworthy. Now you've referenced to it being an 87-year-old vessel, and like I said just now, there's been no resignation. You think government's justification for, in a sense, not having Mr. Ejil and not having Mr. Indar step down, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's sufficient, their explanation, or their silence?
Well, I think maybe they're waiting for another tragedy, because if you have the same people and they do not show the kind of responsibility, or they're not observing the kind of safety that you hope for them to observe, well, then you can end up with the same problem, and that's a bigger risk. I know when there is a disaster or a tragedy, well, then you learn from it. You want to avoid it. And this is not something that 2 people died. It's over 100, I understand. And, that's something really meaningful. It goes down in history. It's not something that Guyanese will ever forget. This would go on for a while. This would be in our minds. And especially those who were out there 7 hours on the sea. Some of them who died, we don't know what they went through. There was one story where that really touched me, where one guy had a roll of vinyl that he held on to, and he saw a mother and child struggling, and he gave that mother that roll of vinyl to hold on, and he went down. That was a sacrifice, he made. And so many stories we hear that people, that survivors would give, and it's kind of touching. And to see nothing being done, I think better systems should be in place. When it comes to the amount of people going on that boat, you need to have all their names, and if possible, their pictures. Who went on that boat, every trip, the amount of cargo they're taking, every piece. I think, we should really step up and do better.
Now, like I said, you've interacted with villagers, you've interacted with families who've been affected, and you too in region 2, those who were involved, you said your son was involved in the emergency response. What counseling and therapy do you believe that those people who were either survivors or families of the victims, or even those who were part of the search and rescue mission should receive?
They should receive counseling and regular visit, to see how they are doing, if they're trying to overcome, and they would be grieving inside, but still, some sort of encouragement. And keep praying with them and so on.
Mr. Russell?
Yes, I think they needed this kind of support from counseling as well and other therapy, but I'm not sure if they really had that. My son, he mentioned that because some of the nurses, they were kind of traumatized, they couldn't handle the work, they left, and some of them got sick, and so they couldn't eat. It's not a nice situation where you handle these bodies. Sometimes it's bodies without head, without limbs and all of that. So that makes it kind of hard for people to identify their loved ones too. But like my son said, he's not sure if the nurses had any therapy, because, he told them, he is okay, he eats well and sleeps well, and he didn't show up for that, but he went home and spent some time. So, but I'm not sure if the survivors, receive any counseling and therapy as they should have.
As they should have. Now let's turn our attention to the Commission of Inquiry. Now the government would have established a 5-member international commission led by Justice Godfrey Philip Smith. Does the APA accept or support the establishment? Are you satisfied with the establishment of this COI in its current status? What are your thoughts on the COI? I'll start with Ms. Skeete.
I hope they come out with a positive investigation.
So you're satisfied with the composition of the Commission of Inquiry, and is the APA satisfied with that composition? Do you think that you're going to get justice, or the incident is going to be thoroughly investigated?
I'm not familiar with the members of the COI, but I understand, and where I see them faulting as well is that consultation, and who are we supposed to put this? The wider community should have made this kind of decision. Indigenous people were the most who died there and suffered there. Is anybody from the indigenous people there? I'm not sure. Then what about
Was
this?
the APA consulted? Let's talk about that organization for which you are part.
No, they were not.
The APA wasn't consulted.
It's just maybe the president pulled people together, and he thought maybe that was the best thing to do. I'm not sure if the tragedy, got him so traumatized that he could make wise decision, but it should have been a decision that you pull the. I think even survivors should be there, because they could help. They knew what actually. I don't see. When I consider it, I don't see it makes too much of sense, because if you pull all the survivors together, you can have a better inquiry, I feel. As to what transpired, people could say offhand, this boat was like this, it had this, they list the items on the boat, and they had an average, and then you have more people coming together to say that, who were there, but you go pull people, where they going to inquire? Who they going to talk to? The survivors are the people.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking based on inquiries that I've covered that they will be speaking with the survivors, but I hear you when you say that the indigenous communities and organizations ought to have been consulted in the formation of the COI. Now, what do you think the COI should look in, the inquiry should look into? Do you think they should look into the role of the minister? Do you think they should have, they should examine the state of the vessel? Do you think they should have a closer look at the manifest and maybe the CCTV recordings that the minister referenced to, that they look at to ascertain really how many persons were on the vessel? As we were told in the initial stages that there were 133 persons on board the vessel. We later learned that there were more than 170 people on the vessel, and still, persons are still concerned about those numbers. So what are you looking for? What are some of the results you want to, see come out, and recommendations coming out of that COI?
Well, I'm not sure.
Do you want, let's start with the minister. Do you think they should examine the roles and functions of the minister and their responsibility with respect to maritime administration in the country?
Yes, definitely. I think, they should pay attention to that, because, well, this is safety of not 2 people. It's over 200 people maybe was on our boat, and this is something. This is the only vessel that plies the execrable to go into Region 1, and they should pay more attention to that. The minister, he should at least pay more attention to that, and all the workers as well. Transport and harbors, they're responsible for that, and they should, but I'm not sure what's happening right now.
Now, the tragedy happened at a time when the National Tushals Council was meeting, and for that conference, Tushals from the various regions would assemble in Georgetown at the Ortichang Conference Center, and they would discuss issues. Do you think that, given the incident, given that this was a national tragedy, that the conference should have continued?
I think I blame the Tushal for that, and even the minister. I said, well,
when you say the Tushal, you're talking about the head of the NTC.
All the Tushals then. I said, well, something like this happened. This is indigenous people, most of who died and suffered there. And I didn't hear anything. They probably made one statement. I didn't read the statement, but I was waiting to hear something. Well, we gotta quit this conference or something. It would have meant more, for your people. But And even the two shows in Region 1, I was hoping that they would come up with something too, make a statement because all of them travel with a boat. So it's likely that, they have experience traveling on that boat and know the situation. So because I hear people saying that, well, some people would go on that boat, or some people would go and buy a ticket and sell back the ticket for a higher price, and they won't be on the boat. So if you have a manifest, their name obviously will not be there. So that in itself caused some people to not be identified, because who bought tickets, probably they were not on the boat. And that's another case by itself.
All right, so we're going to shift a little to talk about other issues affecting Indigenous people. Now, you're from Barima, and Mr. Russell, you're from Bethany. We'll start with you. What are some of the primary issues facing the residents of Bethany, and do you see the National Tushaus Council really representing, the issues of Indigenous peoples across the country? And why hasn't there a closer relationship between the two, the APA and the NTC?
I believe the politics of the country has changed things quite a lot, and has brought division as well. And the Tushaus, most of them want to become politicians, so they are not looking at their people as they should. They are looking more at the benefits that they can gain. That is why it is like that. Because some people, especially like in the case, this is my opinion, the people, the Tushaus in region 1, they not want to come out and say anything for fear, well, I might be,
Victimized.
Right. They will be victimized. So I feel this thing, but I don't want to say anything because I'm a Tushau, I'm aligned with the government, and if I say something contrary, maybe I won't get the benefits that I should get. People look at benefits rather than, supporting your people.
So you think the NTC has been politicized?
Definitely. Because they don't want to probably have anything to do with APA. And my understanding, it's actually the APA who actually started this. They wanted a body of Tushaus representing Indigenous people. And what I understand in other countries, the Indigenous people, they invite the government to their council, their conference. But it's the opposite in Guyana.
The conference is now being run by the government, you're saying?
Yeah. The government come and they say what they have to say. The Tushaus don't get a chance to speak, and it's their conference. I'm really upset about that. If it's a Tushau conference, well, we run the conference, we chair the conference, we invite which minister we want to, we make the program then. Because it's our conference. That makes sense to me. Rather than the minister, who is a politician, make the agenda. So that's how it goes. And this is why the Indigenous people kind of suffer, because we have to take what we get. If we don't align ourselves with the politics of the day, well, we are left behind. And then, well, who would represent the people? Who would stand for your people? Well, then everything goes down. One thing I want to mention is that, well, systems must be in place, regardless of indigenous or not. The transportation, the public transportation, you know, need to, the safety rules need to be revised. It's not only on the Barima boat, that service, but I live on the Essequibo, and I travel from Porica to Supanam on a speedboat. Recently, I was coming there, and the first incident, me and my wife, we were coming to Georgetown, because she visits Georgetown very often because of her office, and the boat had a hole just in front of us, and water as big as this was spraying up. I had to take a life jacket and put there and put my foot on it.
All these things should be looked into.
Yes,
Boats should be frequently inspected.
Checked. Right. The other time, it was like a battery at the back. It kind of exploded, and we were, well, she likes to travel at the back because, you know, it's less fatiguing with the waves and stuff. But I look at most of these boats. If you look at it, the battery is right there, and the gasoline bottle right there. Battery could spark. You could have a fire on the boat, and these things need to be addressed. I don't know who gave them their license and whatever, but these boats, they need to be checked.
And persons need to ensure that they wear their life jackets as well.
Right. And they need to be clean as well, because you might pick up a disease with some of the jackets that they have on those boats. They need to be inspected. Well, this one needs to be changed, it needs to be clean, you know, that kind of service.
Yeah, we really need to do better in the area of transport in the country.
And when you think about tourists coming here, we want to attract tourists. You think a foreigner would want to put that jacket on and look at the safety, you know, the boat. Look at that battery there close to the gas bottle, and a hole in the boat. That might be the last time they visit Guyana.
Ms. Skeete, what about you? What are some of the issues facing the people of MV Barima?
Well, for MV Barima, we are having a lot of development, like roads and other stuff. But the only issue is the boat. I feel they should reschedule the timings of the boat. Instead of leaving like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, let them put it like 10 o'clock.
Yeah, so it gets there earlier.
Yeah, so when you travel, you would see where you're going during the day. So that is
all you would like to say?
Yes.
Okay, so allow Mr. Russell to give the closing remarks as we wrap up today's program. You know, when you reflect on all that we've said and all that is taking place that in the country with respect to this tragedy, you know, what are your thoughts? What would you like to say to the people of Guyana? What would you like to say to the government? And then I'll come to you as well.
Yes, like Roxanne said, well, a lot of development is happening, and I see the government placing quite a lot of emphasis on infrastructure. And when I consider, I said, well, all these resources we try to gather, but I always feel the best resource any country could have is the human resource. And that's what we need to pay attention to. You know, the people. And especially the indigenous people, we are, with this fast-growing economy, we are still, you know, kind of suffering because the money that is placed into the community now, it causes separation, it causes confusion, all of that. Because sometimes they come and they build buildings that you don't even need, you know, and they call that development, you know. No, they want to go and drill uranium. And I understand the company has maybe less than 2 years experience who is coming to do that. I was doing a little research and I found out that that's something very dangerous, you know. When the waste that you would have to manage, and some of they use particles. They would have to be buried so deep. I don't know if we have the capacity to really do that. And if we don't do that, we can be affected seriously by that. It's very dangerous. Radioactive, you know, that's not something to play with. And I'm not sure if the government or whoever is doing that, natural resource people, actually know what they're going into. But I know the first people that would suffer is the indigenous people, because that would be doing up in the interior.
Ms. Skeete, closing remarks. You know, what would you like to say to the authorities? What you said there's development happening in Barima. So what would you say to them? What would you say at a time when you say that, you know, yes, there's development, but the transportation sector ought to be improved? There remain calls by the APA for persons to be held accountable, persons in high offices to be held accountable for this national tragedy in which more than 70 persons, and in fact more than 100 persons would have died, because we take into account those still missing.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, concerning the MV Barima tragedy and the survivors, who will forever carry the trauma of an historic disaster that should never have happened, where 179 boarded, 76 rescued, 73 dead, 30 missing or more. Guyanese lives matter, or that accountability matters. The survivors who lived through unimaginable horror and to every family still waiting for answers of their loved ones. As Indigenous peoples, as I stand here, we will continue demand accountability, justice, solidarity, and the truth must prevail. Because the lives lost aboard the MV Barima deserve more than condolences. Our hearts are grieving throughout Guyana and nationally. I stand with my people of Region 1.
Thank you. Well said. Indeed, the nation continues to mourn the deaths of those who, you know, lost their lives on board the MV Barima when it sank. And we continue to offer our support to the survivors who definitely would need counseling and therapy, you know, in the years to come even. So right now and looking ahead, they should be supported all the way. And so that has brought us to the end of this edition of Sources. I've been your host, Svetlana Marshall. Stay well.